Alright guys, we are doing revision for grade 12. Question 1, solve for x. So you need to look for the factors here. Open two brackets. The factors of 3, it can only be 3 and 1. Or 1 and 3 or 3 and 1. And the factors of 2 can be 2 and 1. X, x. Right, so these terms, whenever you simplify, they must end up finding the solution, which is minus 5 there. So let's check if this will work. X times, so it's 2x squared. We find this one because the focus is on this one. So let's have a look at those values that will get us x. So 2 times, which is 6, 2 times 3, 6x, 1 times 1 is x. So to find this value, 6 must be negative and 1 must be positive. So in order to get minus 6, we have 2x times 3. So 3 must be negative, and we have 1 times 1 to get a positive 1. So this one must be positive. So these are your factors. But we're not looking for factors, we're looking for the value of x. So we need to simplify further. 2x is equal to minus 1. It's like you equate all of this to 0, and then you divide by 2. X is equal to minus 1 over 2. Or x minus 3 is equal to 0, which is equal to x is equal to 3. So this is your next term. Next possible value of x. So the next question is 1.2. So again, you need to find the value of x. So the first thing you need to do, you need to simplify here. It's binomial. So it's x squared minus 4x minus 3x. If you multiply this 2, and then minus 3x times minus 4, which is equal to positive 12, greater or equal to 12. So you need to add the like terms. X squared minus 7x plus 12. You need to transpose 12 minus 12 greater or equal to 0. So these are like terms which amount to 0. X squared minus 7x, 12 minus 12 is 0, greater or equal to 0. So we are looking for x. So we have a common factor, which is x, and then we are left with x minus 7 greater or equal to 0. So the critical values are x is equal to 0 for this one, or x is equal to 7. So these are your critical values. But now you need to find the values of x that will satisfy the equation, whether this one, the original one, which is 1 and the same as this one. So first, let's start by looking at the value of x equal to 0. Right, let's substitute 0 and see if it satisfies the equation. So if you substitute 0, so we have 0 into 0 minus 7. Let's have a look whether it supports the equation there. So our final answer is 0. So 0, if you multiply by 0, there you get 0. 0 is greater or equal to 0. So x is equal to 0 is supported because there is a portion that talks about an equal sign there. It's greater or equal. So x equal to 0 satisfy a portion of the equation. Right, so let's have a look at the values. So x equal to 0 satisfy a portion of the equation. Let's look at the values that are greater or less than 0. Let's try 1. 1 into 1 minus 7. Minus 7. let's check whether the values that are greater than 1, they satisfy the equation. So multiply by 1 times 1, and then the solution will be minus 6 greater or equal to 0. So the values that are greater than 1, so are greater than 0, they don't satisfy the equation, so it doesn't work. So let's look at the values that are less than 0. For instance, take minus 1. Minus 1 into minus 1 times minus 7 greater or equal to 0. You multiply these two, get 1 plus 7 greater or equal to 0, which is 8. Oh, that's very lovely. The values that are less than 0, they support the equation because 8 is greater than 0. So our final conclusion is 0. X must be equal to 0. It satisfies the equation as we have seen there. And x must be, the value that we substituted must be less than 0 so that it satisfies the equation. So this is your first solution. So it's going to be a bit long since this sum is worth 5 marks. Right, the second one will be, let's try the values by substituting 7. So this will be x into x minus 7 greater or equal to 0. Let's start by substituting the value of x, which is 7. 7 into 7 minus 7 greater or equal to 0. If you multiply these two, you get this one is 0, so 0 is greater than 0. So you can see that this 0 supports this part of the inequality sign. So x is equal to 7 is one of our solution. Let's look at the second solution. Let's try numbers that are greater than 7, like 8. So 8 into 8 minus 7 is greater or equal to 0. Multiply by 8 there, or just simplify the bracket there. 8 into, which is 1, greater or equal to 0. Now we find that if we substitute a value that is greater than 7, and then 8 is greater or equal to 0, we find that it supports the equation 8 is greater than 0. So our conclusion, therefore, x must be, let's look at our critical value there, which is our reference point, which is equal to 7. Which numbers that satisfy the equation are numbers that are greater than 7? Greater than 7. X represent those numbers. And also the numbers that are a number that is equal to 7. So that's, yeah, our revision.